Hi, and thanks for joining me. In this video tip, I'm going to share with you some very important tips on how to professionally format your cover letter. Most people focus mostly on the content of the letter and forget that the design and how it looks is equally as important. So let's get started. I created this sample cover letter for our lesson in Microsoft Word. I didn't use any real words, so don't worry if you don't understand any of this. I don't either. But that's not the point. The point is for us to see the format or structure and layout of this document. And let's start with the header, which is the section at the top. First, let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Make sure that the header in your cover letter is exactly the same as the header in your resume. This includes the information as well as the font style and the font size. What I like to do is I like to include this information in the header section of the document, and you can access it by double-clicking at the top of your page. And you can see that the header section actually becomes available for editing. So you can simply copy this section from your resume and just paste it into your cover letter. That way you can make sure that it is exactly the same. Let's go back to the body of the document. The next tip I want to share with you is to make sure that the font size and style of your text is exactly the same as the font size and style of the text in your resume. Next, we want to make sure that the document is left aligned. What that means is if you look at the left section of this document, it is even. But do not make block paragraphs. That's this thing here. It says justify. Do not select this because we don't want this section to be even. Now I know in some countries you're encouraged to do this. But the reason we don't do it in North America is because by selecting this, which is align left, it actually makes the document easier and faster to read. Now this is extremely important because less than half of recruiters and hiring managers actually read your cover letter. Now, when we think about the fact that these people spend between 6 and 30 seconds reading your resume, which is the more important document, imagine how much time they spend reading your cover letter, if they read it at all. So the next tip I have for you is to make sure that your cover letter has no more than 3 or 4 paragraphs. 3 is optimal, but you can go for 4 if you really need to. Next, make sure that the paragraphs are short. Make sure that every paragraph has no more than about 10 lines. Now this one has 7, and you can see that it's starting to be long. But it's still okay because it's less than 10. Now, we set a limit for the number of paragraphs. We also need to set a limit for the number of words in your letter. Make sure your letter is no more than about 300 words. And you can easily see that. When I select all of the paragraphs here from the body of my letter, I can then look at the bottom left section of Microsoft Word, and it actually tells me how many words my document has. In this case, I have 294 words in the body of my letter, which is fine. Remember, you want to make it easier for the reader to go through your document. This is why we limit the number of paragraphs and the number of words. The other tip I have for you is not to indent the beginning of the paragraph. What do I mean? I mean this. When I click Tab, you see what happens? We don't do this in business documents typically. What we do is we remove the tab and we separate the paragraphs by one line space in between each paragraph. This includes one line space after your date, one line space after your greeting, and one line space before your closing. Another tip I have for you is to include your digital signature, if possible. Now, many times I don't do this, and I don't think it's a big deal if you leave it out, but if you do include it, it just makes your document look more professional. And the last tip regarding your cover letter formatting, let's go back to looking at the whole document, is to make sure that you balance your white space. What this means is that you should leave enough space at the sides and at the bottom of your document so that it looks clean and professional. In Canada and the USA, it is recommended that you leave about 1 inch or about 2.5 centimeter margins left, right, and bottom. And of course, when you use the header section, just use it the way Microsoft Word has formatted. And when you do that, you will end up with a professional looking cover letter. I hope this tip was useful for you, and as always, if you have any comments or questions, please make sure to leave them in the comment section below. And if you found this tip useful, share it and subscribe to the channel.